Welcome to Kingdom Metalworks. So we're doing one more session, and on this session we're going to do a little bit more shaping on our panel. Like I said, it's a process. So where I left off last time was I had my reference points for the shaping, had the reference points for my bending on a phenolic block just to get the return in, and I know I have a little too much return in this, and I'll be utilizing the bag to be able to conform this to come over a little bit more. At the same time as going to be doing a little bit more wheeling through here, which we'll probably do first, just to shape this up a little bit more so it will conform to my profile. As you can see on the side in here, we're looking pretty good. We're not too far off. There's a little bit too much shape in the front, but then I've got to flick this flange and throw that over, which is going to look the same as that flange. And so I like to have enough shape in it that it maintains the correct shape once I've tipped the flange. So I'm now going to gauge coming through in here, and as you can see, I need a little bit more shape right where my fingers are. There's a little bit of a light line. We're touching up from here, we're not touching here, and we're touching here. So therefore I need a little bit more crown just in this area here. And at the same time, as I shared, we're getting our contour of our catwalk, and I need that profile to fit. And as you can see, we're not there. So the process will be me wheeling a little bit more shape in here, me coming over to the shrinker to just gently tighten up this edge and throw this edge over. Because if I don't tighten up this edge and I wheel through here, I'll get enough crown in here, but it won't be over enough for the profile to drop down and in. So the further I bring it back, obviously, the easier it fits. But this is the high crown area, and this is where all the shaping is needed. So let's get started. We're going to set our pressure. I dialed it up just to put in a little crowning, long and shorts. Going through the area that I need a little bit more crowning, going and flowing. Being careful not to cross the line, not to rib the panel. What you'll notice is that on my left hand over here, I have an index finger out. That's my steering. This hand is just supporting. So I'm making sure the panel is staying on and even. This hand is dropping the panel down, but it's also steering my tracking. I like an index finger out. I like my thumb nicely on the edge. That way my fingers can be right underneath the edge of the panel, and I can get fairly close to that edge without running my thumb or fingers in the wheel. And I have full control of the panel and the direction that it's going. And I'm seeing the shape come in, and like I say, I have a lot of pressure. So now I move my hands back out the way. I'm going to come closer to the edge. I'm not going to run on the edge, but I know I need some shape close to that edge. We'll punch in a little bit more in that front nose. There we have it. So now I'm going to check my gauge and see where I am. And you can see it's become a lot closer. Notice that where it gets closer here, the back end is dropping away too far. So now I'm going to have to wheel through here on the reverse manner on the panel to obtain the shape that I need. But for right now, we're going to focus on just this front section in here. It's got the most shape, and I like to shape from the high crown and blend into a low crown. Shaping on the high crown that drops over, blending in to the edge that's low crown. So that's just the way I prefer. There's lots of different ways to do metal shaping. I'm just showing you something that I like to do in preference to how I like to do it. So as you can see, the panel has got some shape in it. It's looking reasonable. We have our lines still in there for the catwalk. That valley is coming in nice. We have our curvature look to it, and we have our throw over to it. I need a little bit more throw over. So first off, we're testing this one. Let's walk over to the shrinker. So this is just a mechanical stretcher shrinker, and I've got the shrinking jaws in. Most people, when they put the jaws together, there's a little gap in the front. You've got to get the gap offset for shrinking. Otherwise, it will give you a lot of little puckers and tuckers, and you don't want those. So right here, I'm just going to come in, and all I'm doing is just putting in a little bit of pressure, just tightening up that edge. I don't want to go too excessive, but I do want to tell the panel which direction I want it to go. So in shrinking it and tightening it up, I'm also giving it just a hair little English down. Hardly anything, but I'm not holding the panel up so that it starts kinking. You've got to have the panel under control so that you're telling the metal exactly where you want it to go. So I just tightened that edge up. I'm going to come back across again and tighten up a little bit more. I like to go across the panel numerous times in the stretcher or a shrinker, and right now I'm using the shrinker because I then know that I'm not putting a whole bunch of ribs and kinks in the panel. As you can see, it's nice and smooth, going and blending and shaping. So now I've tightened up that edge. It's tightened it up this way, but also this way. So it's dropped it over a hair, and it's put a little bit more crown in here. Let's see where we're at. So just by me putting that in the shrinker, you can see now I have a rock. That's good. I've got too much shape in here right now. But what I'm not conformed to is my shape this direction. When I go to the English wheel with the rubber, with the urethane band on it, I'm then going to crown this shape up to get my contour like this, which will straighten this out somewhat slightly. So now I'm working together with my two sweeps, like I said, and you can see that we're starting to come in a little bit quicker. As I said, by shrinking this edge, I threw it over. So now I'm going to go to the rubberized wheel. I'm going to have just a taddy of pressure on it, just enough to be able to shape without ribbing. And I'm going to run through that a couple of times. Nice and steady and smooth. This is kind of a slow process, but at the same time, a very important process, because we want the panel to shape up, but we don't want to be putting lots of big ribs in it. The more you put in there, obviously, the more you've got to get them out. Noticing I'm running right to the end of the panel, just slightly out, because like I say, this is not linear stretching, this is linear forming. So therefore, it doesn't stretch the end of the panel out. It just conforms it to what I want it to do, where I want it to go. And it's all a nice, slow, blended motion coming through. Now that I've put a little bit more shape on that panel with my urethane wheel, I'm going to check it on the gauge again, just to see where I'm at. I believe I need a little bit more pressure on the wheel, but we'll check it out. Like I said, it's a slow process, but keeping it all under control. So now I come back in with my pattern to see. You can see I fit almost there, so I can up my pressure. I don't fit back up in here. So this needs to be thrown over more. Like I say, we're roughing out. We'll do some smoothing and blending a little later. I'm just going to push in and do the front section that I need to be pushed over, long and short slow. So that little bit of pressure that I added to the urethane wheel, the band that's on the top wheel, now allows that metal to form over. I'm watching the shape of the panel form over, so I'm keeping an eye on that to see how much it's actually pulling over. And then we're going to have a look to see how close we are now. As you can see, it's nice and smooth. I can feel very, very light ribs in it, but hardly anything. But you can see this is now bulging up and this is now dropping over. Are we getting closer? So we're getting a lot closer to the shape that we want, but instead of it sitting right here, we need it to sit back here. So that the center of this radius goes into the center of our panel on the margin line that we drew. So to help the panel, let it know what I need it to do, I need to drop this over a taddy more, and I need to bring this slightly down, which is going to throw this over. To do that, I'm going to go over to the lead shot bag, and with the lead shot bag, I have some nice elongated ones, the old oblong. And the oblong is a nice shape. I fill it with enough lead shot to give me a nice conform. Has a band in it. If I need to use the lead shot bag while I'm working on a car, it's ideal. If I need to use a lead shot bag and stick it on a mandrel in the vise, or I could even stick it on an anvil on the snout and still dress all the way over my panel. But for today, we're just going to place it onto the other lead shot bag. I like to stack them to get the conformity of what I need. Like I say, this is the area here that is too flicked up. If this area comes down, that whole profile sweep will fit a lot better. Let's just see how we go. So I now just use a little bit of pressure. And then I'm going to come back in and utilize just this area of my tummy to bring this in, just on this hollow here. Just a little bit of flexing. Now we'll go over to the profile and see how we fit. Are we fitting any better? Is it starting to conform in? Now you can see I'm starting to sit in a lot closer. It's still not here. It still needs a little bit more shape in here to throw that over a little bit more. So I go back to the rubberized wheel. Starting in the crown of the panel, because I know this has enough flick over, I'm now going to put more crown in here. And I'm linear forming, just doing the bend. Let's see how we're doing now and if there's any change. So you can see we're starting to move further and further over, still needing more shaping through here to lift this up. Let's check our other profile because we're keeping an eye on both. And like I said, there was too much shape in it before. It was touching in the center and not on the ends. But now you'll see that we're starting to conform in. Wow, not looking too shabby. Coming in and through. I can see right in this area, a little light line, a little gap. I'm needing to put a little bit more bend in here to bring this up. And this profile says exactly the same. So then this one wants me to throw this panel down by bringing this panel part up. This will come up, this will drop down, and then I need to transfer this over just a hair more, which will be my reverse curve. My reverse curve, I will then change wheel into a number 5 to give me that more detailed shape, and that'll be on the next video. Well, if you've enjoyed the information that I've given you on the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you.